Hi, y'all. We're answering questions today from the podcast, from listeners, and we have one coming up from Francis in Indianapolis. Okay, this is our Ask Michelle series of questions, and we have one from a listener in Indianapolis. Francis asks, how can you decide fair consequences on the spot? I struggle with this and end up yelling instead of calmly explaining a consequence because I can't think of one that is related to the action. Yeah, understood. There's a lot there. Okay, so let's start with Francis. First of all, I want to remind all of us, myself included, that I am 100% responsible for what I say and what I do. I'm 100% responsible for whatever comes out of my mouth. So you yell at me, you're responsible for that. If I yell back at you, I'm responsible for that. That's not really a message we hear very often in this culture. It's kind of, well, you did this to me, so I can do this to you. I'm justified. In fact, that's not where I come from at all in regards to parenting or just how I conduct myself. I'm 100% responsible for what I say and what I do, no matter what my child is doing. So I've written a book on this topic, that how we're 100% responsible for what we say and what we do. And it's Stay Away from D. And there's more about that in the links below if you want to learn more about that. But for now, all we need to know is that we're 100% responsible in this situation for what we do. If we yell, I'm still responsible for that. If I spank, I'm responsible for that. If I humiliate, shame, any of that. And it's staying away from those. And we are doing perfect parenting if we can stay away from those. And so just taking yourself out and walking away and going and breathing for a few minutes before you respond to your child is beautiful parenting. It's not urgent. You don't have to do this right now. Francis, you don't need to have one right now. I sense the urgency that you're in your question, like that I've got to come up with this in the moment, a consequence right now. You don't. Say, you know what? I'm gonna get back to you. I'm gonna go over here for a minute. Go get something to eat or drink or walk outside or do something, breathe. Do something for yourself so that you can re-engage with this child and then come from a place of, responsiveness that you can think instead of reactiveness where you don't think. It just comes out and you yell. That's the reaction part versus a response. A reaction has no thought, responses have thought. So we have to pause in order to access that part of our brain to come to a response. So for Francis in Indianapolis, who is trying to come up with a consequence in the moment to her child and is yelling because she can't come up with one that's related. So she touched on something really important in there too, which is for something to be a consequence, it needs to fit 4 R's. Otherwise, it's a punishment. They're different. A consequence is very different than a punishment. A consequence is, it's related to their offense. It needs to be, if it's about like a consequence for shoes being laid out, is around shoes. So the shoes would be taken away at my house for that day and the next day. So it's related to shoes. It's not, I'm going to, you don't get dinner tonight, or it's not, I'm not going to read to you tonight because you're leaving your shoes around. It's not related. So it needs to be related to the shoes, which is what she's struggling with, trying to find something related, which might take you a little time to come up with. And it's okay to pause that moment, Francis. Pause it and come back to it, because you can do that with kids unless it's urgent. Related, reasonable. Not, this, I will never buy you a pair of shoes again. Okay, that's not reasonable, and it's a flat out lie, okay? So it needs to be reasonable. Reasonable is the shoes are not available to you today and tomorrow. You can work on it again the next day after that. It needs to teach them some responsibility, which that would be if you're doing it about the shoes, taking them away for the day and the next day. And it needs to be respectful. Okay, so like sending your child, to their room with no dinner, it's not respectful for the shoes. It's not related. It's not teaching them anything. So that's how consequences work. And there's a lot more about that. And if you want to check out the links below, I have a whole talk about consequences that work. It's a skill, and it's hard to really think differently about that because we often think in terms of punishment, and punishments do not do any of those things. Punishments don't work. They're ineffective. And the reason that they're ineffective is because as the child, I just freaking hate you. I hate you for putting me in timeout or taking away my iPad or not letting me have dinner or whatever it is that you've done. It's not related. It's not teaching them anything. I'm not reflecting on my behaviors. It's not respectful, and it's related, respectful, reasonable, and teach them something related. So anyway, there's a difference between consequences and punishments. There's a lot more about that. So in regards to your situation, Francis, in trying to calmly come up with something that's related, I would say give yourself a break in that moment. Step away if you're going to yell, because you're 100% responsible for what you say and what you do. And so take your own break, augment yourself, like augment your own resources, do something to deposit into your own account that helps you come back and to be a better parent. Like, do not feel guilt, parents out there, by doing things that really are part of your self-care, because you show up as a much better parent when you do. You're brilliant when you do that. You're much more patient, and you can execute these things, and you're not irritable, you're not mean mommy, none of that when you are taking care of yourself. So self-care is not selfish, it's unselfish. In fact, self-care is unselfish. So do whatever you need to do so that you can come back to this moment and not yell and not react and come up with something that is, related. Was her question, how to find something related. And that may take you a little thought. So take the time, give yourself that space to do so, and let your child know, hey, I'm gonna get back to you on this. I gotta reflect on this. I need to think about this, because this ain't okay. What just happened here ain't okay. And I really wanna think about it. And what beautiful modeling that is for your child, because you're showing them that maybe I need to think about some things before I, render a decision, my own decision. I'm going to think about some things. And that's beautiful modeling for your child, because then they learn to do that too. So that was one of the Ask Michelle questions of the day about consequences. And I hope that was helpful for you, Francis, in Indianapolis, and those of you out there who are struggling with that moment of yelling and what you need to do instead. So pass this on, share it, whatever you can do, like, comment, subscribe. Hope it helps, and thanks for joining us.